I'm Kate,
I'm Elle.
and we are Down to Fae.
We're continuing our Throne of Glass deep dive today with a second short story from Assassin's Blade, The Assassin and the Healer.
And yes, we know who Irene Towers is in like the bigger picture, but we are Throne of Glass spoiler free, so we will not be talking about the future of her character, just her in the context of this particular story. We're dumb bitches, but I didn't want y'all thinking we were that dumb that we didn't put it together.
Who's that? Especially since she says her name.
Right.
Like, wow, guys. But before we head to the White Pig Inn, that is such a terrible name.
The White Pig.
It just sounds like it's a hovel. You have our book rec this week.
With my full chest and both tits, I am recommending A Soul to Keep by Opal Reyne.
Ooh.
I love this series. If you haven't seen the cover and you still have your place in heaven, it's a monster fucking story or a monster fucking romance. Because Orpheus is more of a gentleman than anybody that we've ever dated.
That's true.
Our FMC Rhea's entire family is murdered. Well, they're eaten by demons.
Whoa.
And because I know it starts off strong, and because she survived, she is called the Harbinger of Bad Omens, and she's shunned by her shitty little village. So when the next offering comes up to the Duskwalker, she is, of course, that bitch. The Duskwalker isn't actually, like, technically a demon, but he sure as shit isn't human. He eats humans. And he has a skull face and glowing eyes. So
this is getting really romantic really fast.
It's very romantic. He trades a protection spell to the village for the bride, who ends up being Rhea, and he takes her to the Vale where the demons live because they can't be in sunlight. Duh. It's definite enemies to lovers on Rhea's part. Like, she spends most enemies to lovers. He's a monster who stole her.
Who ate her family?
No, he did not eat her family. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
That was a random demon. That was a random demon attack.
It's different from this demon that eats humans.
But she always tries to run and then needs to be saved. So eventually she's like, I should just stay here. She didn't have much going on anyway. Like, everyone in the village hated her. And Orpheus has more humanity. Like, the Duskwalkers have more humanity than the demons do. But Orpheus has more than most Duskwalkers because he eats humans. And to have more humanity, you have to eat humans. But she still has to teach him a lot. But he's a total cinnamon roll, if you've heard that term. He basically, like, he's hard, you know what I'm saying? Hard on the outside, soft on the inside. And he basically worships her, and he does everything he can to make her happy. Like, he builds her a little garden and...
Excuse me. Isn't she like dinner? Why is he like trying to like make her happy?
You need to move past it.
Okay.
We are now in the lovers part.
Okay, but he's also holding there against her will.
She's
right?
happy there now. Okay. And it's not Stockholm Syndrome. She actually says that, which I don't love when fantasy books have like terms that I would consider
it's too on the nose if you directly say it.
Right. And it is what it is. It's a monster fucking book. There's romance. There's a lot of spice, and the spice is spicy.
Okay.
But we also get to see the demon city, and there's a demon king, and it's just, this book has no right being as adorable as it is. Like, there's a part, this isn't adorable.
Okay.
But there's a part where she asks if his dick is like a human's, and I'm listening to the audiobook, and this guy has the deepest voice I have ever heard, and he says, not at all. And that's when I leaned in.
What do you mean?
I was a little scared. And it's on Spotify Premium, by the way. If you've been following along with my journey, I keep running out of minutes and then I have to wait. But I just started listening. It is on, the last time I checked, it's on Kindle Unlimited. Okay. And I'm listening to the second one right now, which starts out with a double homicide on the part of the FMC. Like,
adorable.
I know. She catches her husband cheating and she kills both of them. So I'm having a little trouble connecting. I love the feminine rage. You love to see it.
Wait, is this the same two people from the first
book?
No,
so it is in the same world.
Oh, I was like, wait, we fall in love and we kill him?
Well, so in the first one, spoiler, they end up, it's like happily ever after.
Of course.
But there's another Duskwalker who's kind of like in the mix, and then he is like, I wish I had my own human, and then she's pushed off a cliff and lands on him.
I mean, I guess there's worse ways to land.
It's coming out of my mouth, it's not as adorable as I don't know. You have to give it a chance. And there are 7 books in this series, like with all different Duskwalkers.
Okay.
And she just announced the 8th one, which I think it looks like it's about the Demon King, like the Demon King and a Duskwalker. So I wish I'd shown you the cover because it's like, it's like, he is like this big, normal looking guy. And then she's like a little Duskwalker, but like their ribs are on the outside and they have a skull. It's
What?
and
We're
he's holding
adorable?
her.
What?
But she also sells little plushies of little like Orpheus, like little Duskwalkers that I kind of want to get if you're like looking for something to send us to our new P.O. box.
Oh my
Opal,
God.
if you're listening.
I'm so, wow. Okay.
And I don't totally know how to transition from tentacles to Assassin's Blade.
Wait, squeeze me. Tentacles?
Tentacles. Did I not mention the tentacles?
He's a demon. Why are there tentacles?
Oh, there's a giant purple dick,
Ooh.
and it is inside of him, and he has to take it out. But the tentacles
What?
are like around it,
Like his normal dick, like it goes inside him?
yeah. There's like a slit. I really hate that word.
Is
And
this like when we joked about the merman, like in one of
Where-
our series,
yes,
where
like-
the dick hides in a slit?
Yes, I assume that this is what
It's happening with
Therion
Therion. Okay.
happens, but it's giant and it's purple, and he has to rearrange her insides to even have
Oh,
sex.
just like the
But they have magic. It's fine.
but that's like the dragon book that I was talking about.
Oh, gilded wings.
Yes. Yeah, he totally rearranges her insides to
Yeah,
fit him. You're like, okay.
Totally fine. Well, what sucks about that, if it were real, is
Can't believe this has to happen
so
to me.
he has a earlier bride that goes off with the Demon King. Like, she's a total bitch.
Wow.
I mean, she was kidnapped, but she was also a total bitch.
Okay.
And so now she can't orgasm with the Demon King because it's like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. She has been rearranged.
I'm sorry, he's not the same type of demon, so his
No,
dick
the
doesn't
Demon
compare.
King is, spoiler, he's like part elf. So, and he hates the elves. He's either an elf or he hates the elves.
This is really going places. So she's ruined for all men, is what I'm hearing.
She's ruined for like a human, like a male.
Never gonna happen.
Never gonna happen.
Wow.
And that's our book rec. But I also want to recommend everybody just to jump to Tell Me Lies on Hulu. It is the best show on TV right now. I tell everyone they have to watch it. It is so fucking good. It's better than the book. If you read the book, now we're on to season 2, and it's talking about things that like never even happened. But Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer, has sex scenes. He is a dirty professor having an affair with a student.
Ooh.
And then it has the guy from The Invitation, Thomas.
Ooh, he's beautiful.
He's beautiful, and he's kind of toxic, but
aren't they all? Okay.
he also has sex scenes.
So you're saying
It's
I should watch it?
Yes,
for the
I'll give you
content.
Kyle's login. There's like 5 of us on there.
We're all adults. We can't buy our own things.
But it is really good. And the main guy in it who plays Steven is the son of Katie. What is her name? She's in like Marriage with Children. Seagull?
Oh, Seagal?
Seagal.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. I can see your face.
Her son. And then you would recognize the main girl that's in it because they're both Nepo babies, but they're together in real life. And I love that. I love that because that just makes the sex scenes like it's very intense.
Like the chemistry is actually there.
Right.
Okay.
And it is so good. So Tell Me Lies on Hulu and A Soul to Keep by Opal Reyne. Those are my recommendations.
Wow.
This
She
week.
gave us books and she gave us a TV show to watch.
She's giving.
Could we ask for more?
If you're new, by the way, we always start out with book recommendations. I think it's funny if anyone ever jumps on and they're like, I thought we were talking about Throne of Glass. And I'm like, anyway, he has tentacles.
Are you new? Come on.
So I need everyone to watch Tell Me Lies because I'm kind of hanging on by a fucking thread. And it will be my 13th reason if that show gets canceled. Because I never see anybody talking about it.
Yeah.
And I just finished Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That's why my hair is curled.
It looks fantastic.
Not as good as theirs is. But, and you're going to die. This is the last thing I'll say before we go into Throne of Glass.
Okay.
They go to Chippendales.
That feels anti-Mormon.
Okay. Well, they're mom talk. They're like a new Mormon. I don't know.
It's different.
It doesn't matter. What matters is when I saw it spelled out my entire life, I thought it was Chip space in space Dales. Chip in Dales. Like it was that guy's name Chip.
Like Chip and Dale.
Yes. I saw it spelled out and I was like, I wonder if the TV, like, misspelled what it was hearing because I always have captions on now,
No, I think it's based on a brand of
and
furniture.
it is not like, there's no one named I didn't assume that it was always gonna be Chip and Dale. I just assumed that it had, like, maybe started as Chip and Dale, and so
You know, you live and you
you live
learn.
and you learn, that's the point of this.
Well, that's actually really funny. Great news. I'm glad you've learned this.
Thank you, I'm always
But
learning.
you know what? Let's get into The Assassin and the Healer.
Let's.
This short story is told from the POV of Irene Towers, who's working at the White Pig Inn, sounds like a classy
Mhm.
joint, in the small port town of Inish and Melisande, and of course, Selena. When we finished our last story, The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, Selena and Sam had just successfully helped two ships full of slaves bound for Rifthold escape Skulls Bay.
And if it isn't the consequences of your own actions, she is paying for what she did. Her problematic and kind of sexy daddy and king of the assassins, Arabin Hamel, has lost a shit ton of money because of what they did in Skulls Bay. And we get like, it takes a little bit. We kind of get what exactly happened piece by piece. I don't even think she fully explains what happened in this story because there's a lot more, especially with Sam.
Well, based on how much I mean, I don't know to the extent the physical beating because she mentions it only kind of,
Mhm.
but I really feel like he seems the type to have like really hurt them. So
Yeah.
kind of surprised she's already out traveling somewhere. That's kind of a lot of leeway to give her to let
Well,
her
and this
travel
is
alone.
it's a like, this is part of the punishment, even though it's, like, bettering herself, like, she's being sent to learn with the best assassins in
I
the
guess
world.
they'll just be really brutal.
Right.
The story begins with Irene's internal monologue about Selena, a strange, well dressed, and armed young woman who's been at the White Pig Inn for 2 days now, but hasn't spoken to anyone other than Nolan, the owner who gave the assassin his best room.
And you know it's still really gross, like, probably I just imagine, like, a bathtub in the room, like that kind of motel.
Well, at one point she mentions that he doesn't even wash the sheets
Oh
unless you can tell
god.
they're dirty. I was like, "Huh."
No. Even
you
if I check into a hotel and I see, like, a hair on a sheet, no, thank you.
you would die.
I'd die. And this is the room that he offers to patrons he plans to bleed dry, which is exactly what he plans to do to Selena, especially after he sees her gold. Is it bro?
I mean, could be brooch or brooch.
Brooch. That's
I
okay.
would say
That's what I
brooch.
meant to ask you about earlier. I was like, there's something stupid that I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Because I say it like that. But anyway, it's a piece of jewelry. But it has a ruby the size of a robin's egg. So it is fucking huge. And it's like they look at her, she's masked, but it's like, oh, it's just this girl traveling alone.
I mean,
She has weapons, but
they're
we could
also kind of
probably
dumb. Like if she's got weapons on her, why is she showing off all her money? Like, think about it, people.
but she has it's giant, it's on display, and that is not an accident.
Yeah, put a pin in that.
Irene has been working at the White Pig, a combo inn and tavern, for a year, 11 months longer than she'd intended, and she fucking hates it in her shitty broom closet. And Nolan and her coworker Jessa, who is a total slut. If you've ever worked in retail or at a restaurant, you've worked with a Jessa. She just sounds like every bad coworker
Yeah,
you've
she
ever
lets
had.
you do all the work and then takes the tips.
Yes.
Like, what a
And
bitch.
she's literally living in a broom closet. She's under the stairs.
It makes me think of Harry Potter. I mean, she's basically Harry Potter in that broom closet
She
beneath the
really like she's
stairs
I'll be in my bedroom making no noise, pretending I don't exist.
and making very little money.
And a year ago, 18-year-old Irene convinced Nolan to let her live and work in the combo Pizza Hut Taco Bell so she wouldn't have to sell her Taurasi on the streets. Honestly, Irene's story to me is the most relatable. Like, you take a job because you need one and you tell yourself, like, I'm going to do this just until I like figure out my next step. And then you look up and it's a year later and you're still there.
Well, and I relate to Irene. It's not that I can't be assertive if I need to, but she's never been out on her own. She's in a new
Mhm.
town, new place. Like, she doesn't know these people. She's trying not to make trouble. And she's like, if I continue to be nice, and they just keep taking from her. So she
Right.
kind of gets trapped into it.
Mhm.
Irene is from Southern Finn Harrow, so she has golden tan skin and brown hair. But what really stands out are her eyes, which are bright gold brown.
She does her best to keep her eyes down, like Selena in the Glass Castle, but for a very different reason. The clientele at the White Pig are pigs. And like Harry, she's mostly trying to pretend like she doesn't exist. Like she is very just standing still in life. Like she's barely existing.
She's also definitely like, please don't draw attention. I don't want the negative. For the past 2 nights, Irene has watched Selena binge drink, then Crip walk to her room alone, but she still hasn't seen her face.
Which isn't weird. We know Selena likes her privacy and she has this whole like baddie PR campaign, but there's actually more to it we learn when we switch to her POV.
But also, can I just say, she's not wearing the mask we saw her wearing with the pirate lord. So,
How do
like,
you know that?
there's different things that Irene says where she can see her cheek
Oh,
or
okay.
her hair or like just different things. But like also, I've never seen anybody wearing a cowl so deep that I can't still see the bottom half of your face.
It's very like Strider.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like
That's how I
like when
picture
he's
it.
in the end and you
Yeah, and
see
you
him
just
like
see the
smoking.
smoke. Yeah.
I'm just
God,
yeah,
it's so sexy.
I'm just curious how that looks.
Yeah.
Selena hates Inish just as much as Irene does. I mean, no one here even knows how famous she
That
is.
actually bothers her. And again, I mean, she's very young. She's what, 16?
Yeah.
So, yeah. She's keeping a low profile because this journey, like we said, is punishment from Arobin from destroying his slave trade agreement with Rolf, the equally problematic and also sexy pirate lord of Skulls Bay. He is sending her to the deserted land, which means that unless she wants to go through the Bogdano jungle, sailing across the Gulf of Oro is the only way. None of that made sense. That was the silliest fucking sentence. She is going through the Bogdano jungle, the Gulf of Oro. What are we
It
talking
sounds very
about?
fairy tale, all of that together.
Just as that was coming out of my mouth, I was like, what am I doing?
It's okay. I understood.
Okay.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know the Gulf of Oro.
You know,
Look at a map.
the jungle, the Bogdano jungle we've not heard about. So Selena's in Inish waiting for a ship to take her to Yurpa. I think it's Yurpa. It could be Urpa.
Again, like what?
Inish,
Sarah.
I'm doing my best. Inish and the kingdom of Melisande in general has fallen on hard times in the past 8.5 years. 8.5 years since the king of Otterland conquered the continent and redirected trade through Eelway instead of Melisande.
And that's kind of like my hometown. I don't know if you know this, but my hometown was once the sock capital of the world, but it has lost that title.
Wow, that's a big
Hard
deal.
times, I know. Back to Selena. She's covering her face, and like you said, it seems like it's a different mask, but what do you actually picture for Selena's mask? Because now, like in 2024, when we say mask, we're picturing COVID mask.
I don't know the right words. Like honestly, I see like I know there's a specific term, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Like a Japanese, like
Kabuku? It's not it.
what was it called?
Kab-
Kabuki.
we are
Wait,
so dumb.
Kiboki. I'm so sorry. I'm sure I sound like a complete idiot. I wasn't prepared for this question.
Kabuki.
Yeah, is that what it is?
I don't know.
Well, I'm imagining like a very flat without much to
Like that wrestler that I really like that comes out.
yeah, but like without much to distinguish any features, and then like
Mhm.
slits for her eyes so you can't really tell what she looks like, and then
Mhm.
like probably a nose hole, but like I'm imagining it doesn't have
Like
much.
full face.
Yeah, like covering her full face and then not
Like the
having.
Death Eaters at Universal.
Yeah, but yeah, basically like covering her full face and then not
Sexy.
having much to like be descriptive so that it's forgettable.
I kind of picture like if you know Scorpion or Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat,
Nope.
and it's you know what I'm talking about. Sub-Zero, come on, get over here. Scorpion? I don't know. It's like the bottom half, but it is you just see the eyes. It's everything else.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. So that's
Some
where we
kind of
stand on mask.
mostly covered. Whatever she's wearing, I imagine it's going to be very difficult for anybody to figure out what she looks like
Right. To
regardless.
see that she's a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah. But like you said, the mask isn't new, but the swelling and bruising from Arabin beating her ass is.
A beating she got the day that she returned from Skulls Bay. Not only had she made an enemy out of the pirate lord, but she's fairly certain she ruined her relationship with Arobin.
Also, she took like 2 weeks to get here, so how does she still have swelling? Especially now that we know
You've
she has
never had
Fey
the shit beat
heritage.
out of you, have you?
No, but I've had bruises and they don't last. Like you could have like they're purpled or yellowed by like
I
2
think it was
weeks.
so bad that like her eyes were swollen
I
shut.
mean, unless he I don't know. I just have a hard time imagining that it lasted around her eyes that long, unless he, like, broke the orbital
Well, even
socket.
if it's she describes it as a lot of, like, yellowing, like, it's healing, but
Yeah.
and it
Because
does seem
she's
like she would have it, like, faster healing.
yeah, I'm just surprised, basically, I guess. The way she describes it seems like it's pretty
Well,
fresh.
and a lot of the damage might is internal, like, she's going through it.
Also
So
that.
it might not actually be that bad, but when she looks at herself in the mirror, she could be seeing the way it was
Well, because at
right
one
after.
point, she
My
does say
voice keeps breaking.
gosh, she does say something to Irene about it being a reminder.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, maybe she's intentionally like making it harder for it to heal. Like instead of like putting ice in a salve, she's like letting it all
Yeah, I
linger
mean,
and
she doesn't
fester.
seem to be traveling with anything to help with the swelling
Yeah.
because Irene put something on it.
Yeah. I mean, even with all that, everything has happened, she doesn't really regret what she did. It was worth it.
That doesn't mean that she's happy about the turn of events. Like, she's been in 3 bar fights in the last 2 weeks that she's been traveling from Rifthold to the Red Desert.
I mean, she's also not hiding the fact that she has money, like wearing that brooch, a gift from Arabin on her 16th birthday, hoping someone will fuck around and find out.
Is if someone's going to try her, it'll have to be tonight because at dawn, she is sailing to the deserted land where she will make the journey to the Red Desert to meet the mute master of the assassins with whom she will train for a month. I love the mute master. What's really interesting is Arobin and Selena are always talking about being like the best assassins in the world, but I think that the mute masters are probably
Yeah, it definitely sounds like they are the best.
right.
So, are you the best or
They
are you
just
just
don't
the best
have
in your
PR.
area?
You're regional best.
Yeah,
Assistant to the
they
regional.
just don't travel. That's different. Also, it's part of her punishment.
If she's being honest with herself, and she usually isn't, she's entertaining the idea of going AWOL to the southern continent, starting a new life, like Sam suggested back at Skulls Bay. Maybe even starting her own little assassin's pyramid scheme.
I mean,
The time to do that would have been right after.
yeah, instead of going back. But even if she doesn't get on the ship tomorrow, she still has to spend at least one more night in this shitty little inn where Irene notes the atmosphere has suddenly changed.
Last call isn't for another 40 minutes, so it's not like Irene can bail, especially with Jessa treating the white pig like it's the Pink Pony Club, and her boss, Nolan, is all of a sudden MIA.
Which is that's weird. I don't think we ever find out where he went,
I
right?
think it's he knows what's about to happen and he wants, like, what is it? Deniability, plausible deniability
Yeah.
of like, oh, I wasn't there. I didn't see someone attack my guest.
Yeah. Well, that
That
and
I've been going around town telling everyone there's someone with money there.
maybe he'll make some money on the side for letting them
Oh,
do
definitely.
whatever they're going to do. Everybody seems to be waiting for something, and they're staring at Selena, including the thieves Irene recognizes who have been circling the inn for the past 2 days trying to figure out if the hooded girl knows how to use her weapons.
But they are done waiting because everyone somehow, like we said, knows that she's leaving tomorrow, including the 4 mercenaries playing kings. When I looked up kings, it kind of looked like Circle of Death.
Kings is another name for Circle of Death, I
Is
think.
it?
Yeah.
We used to love that game,
I
like
don't know if
4 for
that's actually
whores.
what they're playing because it sounds like more fun than if that's really what they're
They're
doing.
going around making like the questions game or like the rules master or
Oh
whatever.
god, the rules. We were so annoying with those.
Hmm,
Sorry, now I got
the good
lost in
old
some
days.
nostalgia for a
And
second.
you would like put the cards underneath the beer tab until it
Yeah.
popped.
Yep. Oh, yeah. 7 is heaven. Yep.
Mhm.
Anyway, Irene wants to warn Selena, but she can't lose this job.
She thinks about her mother, who would not have hesitated to warn Selena. It's obvious Irene not only loved her mother, but she really respected her. Her mother was a gifted healer who never turned away a sick or wounded person, no matter how poor they were. And she said it wasn't her right to charge what she had been given for free by Silba, who's the goddess of healing. Imagine going to your insurance company and being like, how can you charge for that which you were given?
I mean, like, she actually received, like, a magical gift that helps
Mhm.
others, so, like, that's very what's the word I'm looking for?
I bet she could have helped Feyre deliver.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah, well, she's got healing, but also it's
Mhm.
just very selfless, like, you've gotta make a living for you and your family somehow, but at the same time, like, if she can help, she will, regardless if you can pay, which is very nice.
I do wonder if was are there not people with healing magic? I know there are people with healing magic in ACOTAR. Why didn't any of them help? Like, Lucian has a little bit of healing
I
powers.
don't know, it feels like the perfect time for you to like, be
That whole
there as
thing was
things rip
so
and
weird. Not to
fix.
get on a total side note, which speaking of side notes, I've gotten a couple messages being like, "You stupid bitches, it was the parasite." It was. I don't know why last week I forgot and I was like, "Wait, why do they have to do the drop?" It was the parasite.
The
I know
fact that
that.
well, I mean, like, it was one of
No
those,
one
like
said stupid bitches. That's I put that on myself.
but it was one of those, like, side thoughts, like, it's not where our minds were at right then, so
Yes.
we were focused, we're in the zone, you bring it up, and we're like, "What?"
There's too much science in House of Flame and Shadow. I mean, there was too much science in the whole thing, and, like, everything with hypaxia. I was nodding along. I was actually digesting very little.
Well, I mean, all that to be said, I can't every single thing that I know, I can't remember all at once. So, like, if we're talking about one subject, you bring up
Yes.
something else or we make a joke, that's half the time I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what's that called?" Because I'm
Right.
just my mind is
But
not
yes,
there. I'm not
everyone
prepared.
was right, and that
We did remember parasites eventually, thank you.
parasites, but then also when I said that I wasn't sure if a stone was real, what is the clock tower made out of? God,
Obsidian.
obsidian, that is real
Yeah.
too.
Woo! Obsidian, how
We're
exciting.
learning. Thanks for sending me messages. I actually do appreciate messages. I love getting DMs and memes and stuff into our PO box.
Sure. I mean, help us out. Like, we're clearly just having a minute. We love the reminders. But back to Irene. The first and only time that her mother took a life was when the soldiers from Otterland surrounded their house with torches for a literal witch hunt.
And even though her mother told them her power, like Irene's, like everyone's, had disappeared months before, along with all of magic. So it's like, why are you even tracking people down? Magic has disappeared, but they didn't care. So her mother used a hidden dagger, then yelled at Irene to run.
But it's also interesting. I mean, like, I have nothing against witches. Like, I get if you're afraid of witches, but like,
Yeah.
their magic is literally healing,
Mhm.
like the opposite of anything hurtful. So,
Right.
like, of all the people
Well,
to
and
attack, you're
but
like,
you do
why?
know why healers,
Well, yes. But I
specifically someone
mean,
like Irene.
but for all the people that are following orders, it's not like
Yes.
any information was passed down. And I'm also saying that as if I'm not talking about future books.
You also are like, I'm not scared of witches, but
No, well, I mean, because I was like, I get if there's a concern that they could like curse you, like in like
right.
Salem when people were like, "Oh, witches," but like these they aren't even witches; they're literally just healers.
Healers,
They
yeah.
just have healing magic, so it's like they can't even curse you; they heal. It's
Mhm.
just dumb.
Well, and we see the ramifications later on, like even Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, or I guess it's Crown of Midnight, when she is finding bodies in the sick houses and she's talking about everyone who's dying from things that could have been healed.
Yeah. Well, and we meet a character later whose mother didn't have to die, but there's no magic;
Mhm.
couldn't save her. Irene is so lost in thought over all of this that she doesn't notice a man approach her until he wraps his hand around her waist, saying his table could use a pretty face.
And what do you know? This is the kind of guy that does not want to take no for an answer.
Ugh.
When he asks what she's doing after work, like it's any of his fucking business, she lies and says that she's going home to her husband.
A lie that she backs up with the wedding band that she wears, one that belonged to her mother and her mother's mother and all of the women in their family.
And didn't we have a friend who used to wear a fake wedding band out? Or no, I guess it was after her divorce. Never mind.
Yes. Well, I mean, I feel like depending on where we're going, people have put rings on different fingers
Mhm. Of just
regardless.
like, leave me alone.
Yeah, this is not the vibe.
But while Irene is having this internal debate about warning Selena, Selena is in her own head being like looking around, why isn't anyone attacking me? No one wants this giant ruby. Like she is dying for a fight,
She thinks about going outside and finding trouble, but hears Sam's voice in her head calling it reckless and stupid.
which is very Bella like cliff jumping to try to
Adrenaline
hear
rush?
Edward.
Yeah.
So I really want to go to Forks, Washington. If there's anyone out there that ever wants to go to Forks with me
I would like to
for
see
the
it.
content alone, for the
Oh
vibes.
my gosh. Well, the Pacific Northwest is gorgeous.
Well,
I
and
would
if you
totally
go
go.
right now to Google and you Google Twilight, it like scrolls Hoa 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 season across the screen. It's so cute.
Everybody understands. That's funny. Selena doesn't even know if Sam is alive. That's a big jump. She knows he's definitely being punished for the role that he played in freeing the slaves, but she's trying not to think of that.
because she cares, because Sam is her friend, maybe even a little more. And friendship is not a luxury that Selena is used to. And it's kind of the environment that Arabin has bred of everyone like it's competition.
Well, and
No one could be your
it
friend,
was also, like,
even with Lysandra.
smart and manipulative of Arabin to punish them separately.
Yes. Well,
So
no, he
because she
didn't.
doesn't oh,
He did
do we
they
find
were
out
to
more later?
yes,
Okay,
they were together, and she's, I think, mentally blocking something that happened, something that she
oh,
heard someone say, but they
okay,
do that summer, their punishment is separate, but there is,
okay.
like, an initial together.
Because in my reading this section for now, it just she makes it seem as if she doesn't know where he is or how he's doing, or if, like, when she says, "I don't know if he's still alive," it sounds like she knows he's being punished, but I guess maybe it's the fear for her friend of not knowing
And
that
he
helps
could
keep her in
very
line a
well,
little bit.
after she left, have been killed.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Arabin.
Mhm.
He's very manipulative and dark. She does wonder, though, if she started her own guild, would Arabin make Sam his heir, or would Sam join her, run away like he'd suggested in Skull's Bay?
And deep down, I think she knows how Sam was punished, and that's something we'll get to later on. And she knows that Sam would choose her over Arabin. He would choose her over everything, but she's not really ready for that truth yet. Like there's something she's seen and something she has heard,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's behind that door that she
I
has.
was going to say, for right now, with what we have been told as the reader, that seems like a big leap. Although when they were in Skull's Bay, he was like, "Should we just go?"
Mhm.
Like, that was a bonding I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
It seemed to have happened very quickly.
Well, and it's something, so they had never really communicated, but it's something separately, but especially Sam had already been considering of like, should I take off?
Yeah. I mean, they've been put through so many shitty situations.
Mhm.
Everything about their living arrangements is shitty. So, like, I'm sure at some point they've all considered, like, I could do a better job of this somewhere else and not have to deal with this.
Right.
But Selena slips into, then right back at it, back out of her. Sorry, guys. I just like stumbled over that one. Selena slips into, then right back out of her shitty room, ready for a fight or adventure or anything to keep her mind off of Sam and Arabin and the truths that she's just not ready for.
And Irene is out in the misty alley, never good, taking out the trash, and she can't shake the feeling that something is off. And this is why you should always listen to your gut, by the way. She's alone because Jessa went home with whatever sailor's lap she landed in last. So, of course, it's up to Irene to clean up by herself.
I mean, like, Irene is just trying to do her job, but I have a moment where I'm like, what if you take out the trash in the morning?
Right.
Like,
No, who would feed the feral children?
I mean, you're not wrong, but like, the vibes were off when you called last call. Like, I
Yes.
would not want to be out anywhere alone. But once again, Irene lets her mind wander back to her mother, who was burned alive when she was only 11 years old. That is horrific.
But again, it's clearly she's taking from the witch hunts
Yeah. Especially the way they handled everything.
because they weren't they mostly hanged and not, didn't we learn that in, was it Edinburgh that they were mostly,
The witches.
yeah,
I think it just depends
hung
on the
instead of burnt?
country and where you were, because they had that Magica Maleficarum or malicious
Yeah,
what
the
they had
book
some,
that
like,
was like how
handbook that
you,
told them ways that they could basically test/kill the witches to see if they were witches.
mhm.
Phew, terrible, but yeah, it definitely is makes you think of Salem. For the first 6.5 years for Irene, she lived with her mother's after her mother died, she lived with her mother's cousin in another village in Finharrow, pretending to be some not magically gifted distant relative.
It's actually very Harry Potter now that I think about it. And it wasn't that hard to do, like, trying to blend in with non-magical gifted people because her magic really did disappear.
Yeah.
But in those days, everyone was scared and neighbors were turning on neighbors, and the way it's described is it's very similar to the witch hunts, but also to the Holocaust, and it's probably one of the most chilling parts of that when you read about people who had known each other for years, for their whole lives, friends, acquaintances, whatever, turning each other in.
Oh my gosh, and their children. Like, they're
Right.
turning on everybody. It's the fanaticism.
Well, in the way that Sarah has written the mass murder and exile of magic wielders in Fae, it's a lot like what happened, and same with the slave labor camps and the propaganda. Like she's talked about her own like, her family history.
You mean the Holocaust?
Yeah, inspiring her writing, and it's obvious, but also how could those lived experiences not influence your writing? But she also incorporates her religion and culture in really beautiful ways, like the language of the Book of Breathings and Miriam and Dracon's story. I don't know why I
Is
always
it
say his name with
Dracon?
such flourish.
Oh,
Dracon.
meanwhile, I'm over here like, Draken?
Draken?
Phew, sorry, guys.
But yeah,
Just
there's like
another one.
it's you can see all of it in her writing, and it's a lot of the horrible things that have happened, but also a lot of the beautiful things and, like, a lot of the words.
Yeah, well, like, you probably see it in the Lamb's Blood and
Yeah,
Akatar,
with
but
Amryn.
also the name La Habra in Crescent City,
Mhm.
and like you said, the propaganda that we see with Crescent City, and again, like, the labor camps in that series, a lot
Sarah
of it's very parallel.
Right. Sarah is not afraid to talk about really dark subject matter. A lot of the authors in the genre. And that's why I get so pissed when people look down on fantasy romance books as not real fantasy. There's world building, there's the hero's journey, the magic system, politics, it's all there, but there's also mental illness, genocide, abuse. So what if there's a little bit of hope, a little bit of love, there's feminine rage, there's female empowerment. So, who cares if the woman gets a happy ending for once, that she's not some one-dimensional, defined by her relationship to a man? That a woman can be independent and brave and stubborn, and she can be loved for that, not punished like in a lot of the fantasy books. Like, that is a fantasy for a lot of women, incels. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Suck my dick.
But you are so right.
I'll tell you why I was
I
triggered.
mean, but also, like, before I'm sure it's coming, but just fantasy or not, like, the overlying points that she's making are very real. I don't
Right.
care if, like, who cares if I also have magic and fangs? The much bigger picture here is that they're showing relationships between other people, they're showing
Mhm.
empowerment, they're showing making your way in the world and, like, deciding things for yourself and your future. Like, there's
Mhm.
so many bigger.
Like, all these different walks of life, it doesn't have to always be just a man who has figured out that he is the chosen one. Like, there's it can be a woman,
Yeah,
and she can be in love, and that doesn't take away from the story. It just pisses me off. We get and I'll tell you what triggered me.
okay.
We get some messages, I'm not gonna say a ton, but we get a number of messages and comments and stuff from men saying that we're promoting porn or,
You know
"Oh, this
exactly
is
what you're
like"
talking about.
yeah, "This is like cheating on if you have a boyfriend or a husband, this is like cheating on them." And I just how can something that is bringing women like, just let women have something just for themselves, like, why would that piss you off? A woman finding happiness in something.
I think what they don't get is that it's a much bigger picture for us. We're not just reading a sex scene. Like, that's porn. Like, we're not just reading a sex scene. We're reading
It's
so much about this,
mhm,
like you're saying, the empowerment, the finding themselves, getting to know themselves, whether
mhm.
it's finding what they like sexually, just finding ways to love and accept themselves and to do like it's I'm not finding the words properly,
Well,
but
women don't always get that in real life. They don't get the opportunity to explore their sexual fantasies, to explore themselves in any way, because 'cause they're always the caregivers, they're always the nurturers, and in these books, a lot of times, it's like the man worships his female, like, he might be a monster, or he might be a vampire, and he might, be kind of rough or whatever, but it usually is the male worshiping the female, like, he is focused on the female's pleasure, and for a lot of women, that is the biggest fantasy you can write.
yeah. Well, I mean, and it's the acceptance of who they are and what they have to offer
Mhm.
as they are, as opposed to, like, some unrealistic ideal that we see in the media somewhere. Like, it's about so much more than just reading a like, one sex scene. Like, yeah, the
Yes.
sex scene is important, but the sex scene is important because of all the things that have happened for our character leading up to it,
Mhm.
how they feel in the moment, all the things that, like, are, oh gosh, what is the word? Just, like,
Mm,
making just, like
tentacles.
yeah, I don't wanna keep saying empowering, but it'll come to me much later, but in that moment, they're feeling good about themselves
Mhm.
and they're feeling a real connection to
And
somebody,
what's
which
wrong with
half of
that?
us don't get that great connection. We fake it.
Yes.
We're like, "He's close enough."
Mhm.
He's not.
Yeah, the bar is in hell. So, yeah, we like reading about men who are going out of their way. They're like,
To listen to
to
us.
listen.
Thank you for
Yeah.
listening to what I have to
Wow.
say.
Which even just like the book I was talking about earlier, Orpheus, he's a monster and he has like a skull and his ribs are exposed, but he builds her a little garden and he makes her little trinkets and she makes him these silly little bells and he hangs it on his antlers. Like he lives for her.
But again, that means that he's listening to the things that matter to her. I don't care
Yes.
if it's small, it's me. It's what interests me. And you're actually paying attention instead of putting it down or telling me I should be doing something different. So, like, all of that goes into these sex scenes. It's a full support for me.
Yeah, there's just no good way to explain. Also, I'd like to point out the guy who well, there have been a couple now that have been like, "This is just porn," and I'm like, I don't think people are being, like, trafficked into the like, no one's having an addiction to romance books.
Yeah. And
Like, get the fuck out of here.
also,
This
usually,
isn't for you. Not everything is for men. Like, can we not have this?
well, like, one, this is for me, but two, sometimes I might include you in that. Even better, that doesn't happen with your porn
Right.
most of the time. Like, I'm making this a
I can't help it
group
that you
thing.
don't have a big purple dick with tentacles around it. I'm sorry.
Why do you not have horns?
Where are your horns?
Oh, God.
That was such a big tangent. I'm sorry.
I know, and
I
I
don't know
wasn't.
what triggered me. It's because we're recording at night and I'm very spicy.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for the conversation, so I couldn't come up with the words to express myself, but I hope you
That's
guys
okay. I don't know how to
understand.
say brooch.
Well, yeah, we don't have to get into all the things I don't say right.
Like
So,
Eulamus?
you know what? We're gonna have to just let that go at some point.
I don't think I can.
It's you and my sister. Like at random, she'd be like, "So
So
Eulamus,
good.
where did you think
Yeah,
that?"
but your sister roast me and that's not funny.
It's a little bit funny. But anyway, back to Irene not paying attention to her surroundings in the alleyway.
I'm sweating. I'm like sweating on my upper
It
lip.
is kind of warm in here. We're having too
Irene
much fun.
Yeah, we're having too much fun. Irene left her family's farm a few months before her 18th birthday and set out for Antica.
Uh-oh. That accent came in.
Yeah, it's like banjos just fell out of my mouth. Sorry. I'm going to start over.
Okay.
Irene left her family's farm a few months ago before her 18th birthday, and she set out for Antica, a city of learning on the southern continent, a place untouched by Alderland where magic allegedly still exists.
And where the Torre Sesme is located, an academy of healers and physicians. She traveled to Inish because rumors said you could find a boat to the southern continent there.
And she's been there ever since because she ran out of money. Again, we all know that feeling of like getting stuck and it's just like day by day.
Oh,
You're like, I'm just going to,
and
by
her
the end of the month,
options there are very slim. It's like working the streets or working a
you have
job at
to
the White
either
Pig.
sell your Taurasi or you have to work at the White Pig. So she's working at the White Pig. And
Hmm.
she also has ever increasing rent thanks to Nolan. But also sometimes it is easier to do nothing, like to just get through the day and then the day becomes the weeks and then the months. And it makes you think of Selena's problem in Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight when Nehemia and Elena encourage her along. It's because she has also gotten a little too comfortable.
Yeah. Luckily, Selena helps Irene along in a less brutal way. Kind of.
Irene hears a noise and she assumes it's those rabid children we talked about, but she turns to find the mercenaries and she tries to run, but one blocks the door while the other grabs her from behind and demands her tips from that night. Like, are you fucking kidding me? She got one coin.
Yeah,
You're
also,
gonna
I'm
rob
like,
me?
I'm sure that's what you're here for. She's trying to decide between crying, begging, or screaming when one of the men is yanked into the mist. Then another. That's kind of terrifying.
And then they're like, face us like a proper man, which gets an LOL out of Selena as she emerges from the mist like a total badass. She has two long daggers that are dripping blood in her hands.
Here's that fight Selena was looking for, but it's over before it even really starts. Irene comparing her to a wraith moving through the mists.
When Irene begs Selena not to kill her, she's like, I literally, like, why would I kill you? I just saved you.
I honestly, when I read that though, I was like, Irene, are you afraid right now?
Are you okay? I mean, it is like a very powerful image, her coming out of the mist with the blood dripping off of her blades.
Yeah, but like these men are obviously ganging up on you. I don't know. If I was Irene, I would maybe it's because I know Selena. I would have read it as you're
Our
being
close
saved.
personal friend Selena.
But she's like, please don't kill me. We read that differently,
Mhm.
Irene. But you know what? Saving her was actually pure luck. After Selena followed the mercenaries into the alley, that hadn't been her plan.
Well, was it luck or was it fate? Like, just think about where this story goes and what part this character plays, and she has to be in a very specific place with very specific skills.
Well, and I mean, we're gonna mention this so many times with Sarah and SJM, but the little Easter eggs and the way that she
Like dominoes.
yeah, the way that she lines things up
Mhm.
to happen at different times and the way it all, like, comes to fruition later.
Well,
It's
and I'd
so
say the
interesting.
best example is Crescent City. Like, that's one where so many things had to happen
Yeah.
to get there to for us to be in a
A
fucking
lot of
black
things
hole.
had to happen just so. But, I mean,
Yes.
we'll see a lot of that in this series too, not
Whenever
to
we
give
get a
spoilers.
ACOTAR announcement, I don't know, 2025, 2026,
One of those days.
one of those days.
It wasn't really much of a fight though, but Selena did get a cut on her bicep.
Irene offers to bind it for her, even though she's literally shaking, which annoys Selena. We were talking about this before we started recording. Irene doesn't annoy Selena, but a woman being unaware of her surroundings and incapable of defending herself does annoy Selena, which is kind of unfair.
It
Not everyone has been trained as an assassin.
Well, and when you first read it, it's kind of an ick because you're like, "Excuse me," not like, you're used to gore and brutality. A lot of people aren't, and they're very shaken when something like this is
Yes.
thrust on them. Not I mean, it's like she knows that, but I think she's been so, like, ingrained in this kind of just brutal living that
Mhm.
she forgot for a second, like, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Normal people have not like, they might have seen something brutal happen with soldiers when they were young, when Otterlin was, like, conquering everywhere, but aside from that, the normal person doesn't come across dead bodies or, like,
They don't come
get
they don't see
regular
dead
beatings.
bodies, they don't get beat, they're not attacked and have to defend themselves, and even if you watch true crime, sometimes you'll be watching, like, forensic files and you're like, "Why didn't she scream or why didn't she do something?" I I think I've talked about this, but one time I was in Gatlinburg and I was in my car changing shoes out of my hiking boots, and a guy who I didn't know grabbed the handle of the door and started trying to open it, and I look over and I see him, and I grab the door because it was unlocked because I was changing my shoes, very stupid.
I
But we're
mean,
just staring at each other,
yeah.
and I didn't make a sound, like, looking back, I am so mad at myself, I've kicked myself so many times. Why didn't I scream? Because my boyfriend was in the back, and he eventually heard what was going on because the guy started yelling at me to open the door,
Which is wild. Her
and
boyfriend was sitting around the back of the
he just
car,
didn't see him
and
in
it's
the
broad
back,
daylight, and this guy, like, walked
and
up and tried to get you.
he said he had a gun, and he pulled his jacket back, and he was like, "I have a gun," and I sat there. I didn't do anything.
I mean, like, when these things happen, like, it's so easy from the outside to be like, "Oh, do this, do that," but, like, if something just happens,
I would have
you're
always
not
thought that I
expecting
would
it, like
scream or I mean, I, like, held the door. I feel like when people talk about you get, like, a rush of adrenaline, you have strength.
mhm,
I mean, it seems like he should have been able to open the door. I held it closed at least for long enough for my boyfriend to, like, walk over and start yelling. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
yeah.
And then he threw the keys in and I locked the door and I was like, "Good luck." But it
S
was very scary, like, I couldn't make a sound come out of my body. Like, it was like everything I had was put into holding the door closed. There was nothing left for me to yell.
Yeah, well, so all that to be said, like, it's, I guess, easy to be like, "Oh, you should obviously do this," but if you're caught unaware, like, a lot of
Like
times
Irene was, if you just
you
all of a sudden
freeze.
have a knife at your throat, you're not gonna know what to do.
And I think Selena has a moment where she's like, "Okay, you're right." She just I guess she's been in such a brutal world for so long that it
Mhm.
takes her a minute to, like, her first reaction is to be annoyed at
Yeah.
Irene's helplessness, but it takes her a minute, I think, to process, like, "Wait, this is not normal that I'm expecting a fight all the time."
Well, and
So,
I've taken self-defense classes since then. I'm still not totally sure that I would know what to do in those situations.
I
It's
know
so
for
unnatural because your mind is very, "Is this happening?" Like, I
yeah,
just kept being like, "Is this really happening? Am I misreading this
I
situation?"
was gonna say, I know for a fact I would freeze because I really have a moment of like, "Is this wait,
Like, am
is it go
I
time?
yeah, am
Like,
I the weird one? Am I do like,
is this
what's
really happening?"
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Totally get that. So I think that, once Selena has her moment, when Irene's like, "Let me do this for you," Selena's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
fine." Um, And Irene says it like, "Let me pay you back for Selena saving her." But Selena's like, "You wouldn't owe me anything if you'd use common sense."
And I do think someone is just in a bad mood, having a bad day, a bad couple of weeks, especially when Irene apologizes. And you know how I feel about unnecessary apologies. Like, that is something that actually annoys me. I tell
Mhm.
you all the time, you'll send me, like, hey, sorry I didn't get back to you. And I'm like, don't be sorry. You don't owe me an apology.
I feel like that's just like,
If
how
you're
I'm
listening
raised.
to
I'm like, "Oh,
this
sorry."
podcast, apologize less. That is the patriarchy talking. Do not apologize for simply existing.
This is actually a platform that Kate will die on, and
This
you're
is it, like, it's like one of my biggest thing is when people apologize, I'm like, don't apologize. You didn't do anything. Or like just apologizing for taking up space or existing. I'm like, stop.
you're not wrong, and I don't know if it's just in the South, but, like, half the way we're raised is that, like, it's a courtesy, like, "Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Excuse me, sorry." I'm not sorry.
I'm not
I
sorry.
shouldn't be well, I shouldn't be sorry. We have to work on apologizing less.
This has become like this episode is becoming very spicy,
We have a lot of rants to get off our
which is
chest.
interesting that the assassin and the healer has become our spiciest episode.
You know what? Who knows what's to come? Irene surprises Selena when she doesn't break down in tears. Her voice becomes stronger, the slight change interesting enough that Selena's like, "Whatever, let's go."
Irene grabs some supplies and takes Selena to her broom closet where she removes her cloak and tunic.
Revealing that not only is Selena young and
I love that
beautiful,
Selena's like, "Are you surprised?
I know.
I'm beautiful."
Also, I'm like, where is this cut on your arm that you've taken all your clothes off? Like, that feels like a lot to turn around to.
You turn around and she's
Yeah.
just naked.
Like, boobs out, like, take care of it. You're like, wow. I just got so distracted by that. Anyway, by taking her clothes off, she reveals that not only is she young and beautiful, but she's covered in bruises. She has a black eye that was probably swollen shut at some point, and it's still healing. But back to what you were saying about fate, Irene also thinks Selena finding her in that alley wasn't a coincidence. Even if the gods abandoned her, she still believes in them and believes that they are watching.
And Irene uses a stash of herbs her mother taught her how to use on Selena's cut. And just like her mom, she's not going to send a Venmo request, and she doesn't when anybody in Inish needs help. Like she is very hard on herself about not being enough like her mother, but she actually is a lot like her mother.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think her mother is a great example, but you're not living the same times and you're doing what you can. So, like, you
Mhm.
have to give yourself some grace. Selena also won't tell Irene her name.
But she tells Selena her name is Irene Towers. And when Selena asks, "Why are you in Detroit?" Irene, Irene explains she was on the way to Antica to join the Healers Academy and ran out of money. Something I highlighted is Irene notes that Selena is like wildfire.
Yeah.
Obviously, something that you'll understand what that means if you've read Crown of Midnight and beyond, but it was just a little, I wouldn't even say an Easter egg, but just a little
It's a
something.
very
Little something
specific
something.
term to
Yes. I've
use.
never met someone and been like, "They're like wildfire."
You're right. Selena gives Irene some unsolicited advice. Life isn't easy, no matter where you are. You'll make choices you think are right and then suffer for them.
Should you put that on a poster?
I know
It's
there's
so
got to be a better way
inspirational.
to say that. So if you're going to be miserable, you might as well go to Annika and be miserable in the shadow of the Torre Sesame.
And when she hears her, she knows the name of the school and she knows how to pronounce it correctly, unlike us probably. It tells Irene that Selena is educated. Like, this bitch at least went to community college. So even though Irene doesn't know anything about Selena, there are little hints.
Yeah, that tell her, if nothing else, something about her upbringing.
Mhm.
When Irene is like, yeah, like I said, I'd love to go, but I'm a poor. I'm a poor. I'm poor.
I'm a poor. I'm a
Selena.
pavo.
Selena's like, steal the money.
Selena, I was like, you give such good advice, Selena. Selena asks about Irene's mother, and when she tells her she died 8 years ago, Selena comments it was a hard time to be a gifted healer on the continent, especially in Finharo. Is that how you said it? Finharo?
I said
Finharo?
Finn Hero. I don't know
Finfaro.
which one's
The
right.
king of Otterland didn't leave much of its people or its royal family alive. And if you've not read ahead, we will visit Finharo when we meet one of our favorite characters in Air of Fire, because that's where her story starts out.
Irene sees the simmering rage in Selena's eyes when she talks about what happened 8 years ago and wonders what exactly she's been through that would make her have that sort of reaction.
She doesn't want to talk about it. Changing the subject, Selena asks what Irene would do after going to the Healers Academy. And she answers she would come back and she would help people.
She would escape just to learn how to better help people, then return to this continent after escaping.
And I think we know by now that Selena is always comparing herself to people. What does that sound?
I don't know.
I think Selena is always comparing herself to people like Nehemia, who she saw standing up for and fighting for her people, while Selena viewed herself as a coward who's been running for years. And she'd just been considering escaping to the southern continent and setting up her own guild. And now here's this girl, Irene, saying that she would leave and come back to help her people because it's the right thing to do.
Whether she stays or goes to Antica, Selena says Irene should know how to defend herself, at least on a basic level.
And she just so happens to be running an intro course to self defense in the alley right now. And again, based on her history, it doesn't usually work out in Selena's favor to help people, but it doesn't stop her from helping Irene. And it's like, she could have what she could have taken away from what happened in Skulls Bay was like, I need to mind my own fucking business.
But
But she's still willing to help people.
yeah, something about this is actually really changing for Selena, because she was,
Right.
when we first saw her in the end, she's very like angry and frustrated and focused on her own pain, and then she's
Mhm.
having a real moment of like thinking about somebody else, how she can help them, what she can do to better them.
Right.
There's also the fact that Selena herself had once dreamed of attending the Academy for Healers, of being a healer. And now here they are, a healer and an assassin, opposite sides of the coin.
And Sarah loves a training montage and women learning how to defend themselves, feminine rage, feminine empowerment. Like we see this in all of the series. We see it in Akatar with Nesta training to be a Valkyrie. We see it, well, I mean, we obviously see it in this book, but Crescent City with Bryce coming into her power and her heritage. Like there's always these moments that are turning points. I would say Farah, like not being codependent, but then you
Well,
know
they
how I
also
feel.
teach, I mean, like Feyre and Cassian training and like learning
In
how
the
to fight
yeah, like
too.
Asriel teaching her how to use her back muscles to fly, like things.
Yeah.
There's always like she just loves a good wax on, wax off.
Well, anything to like better yourself. She loves
Yes.
having, it's a montage of training, but it's also like growth, like
Mhm.
emotional, but also physical.
Right.
Selena teaches her the basics like Ben taught her. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't let them take you to a second
That is
location.
so important
I
in
mean,
real
it
life.
really is like, the more you think about it, like, okay, if I go somewhere, I'm in more trouble. Like,
Right.
don't let them take you away. Fight back enough to convince them that you're not worth the trouble, and make as much noise as possible, but scream fire, not rape, so people will run towards you.
That is so like so sad and crazy that you have
Yeah.
to.
But it's,
But I mean, I've always heard that.
yeah. If they're after money, she tells Irene, throw your coins and run in the opposite direction. So they have to choose.
But if none of that works, Selena walks her through the eye gouge, the ear clap, pinching the inside of a man's upper thigh, stomping on the foot, and always go for the dick. The
Selena,
classics.
the classic, go for the dick.
Except for the ear clap, I feel like I would do that and it would be very Three Stooges looking. Like you just look at me like,
I mean, but
what?
also like my head hurts just hearing you say that though. So I'm sure that would definitely help.
Should we try it?
No,
Okay.
no, thank you. Selena tells Irene to pass the advice on to any woman who will listen.
Somewhere along the way, Selena decides in this interaction, everything that she's gone through, and it's really just in one night, which is crazy, but with Irene, she's made the decision to go ahead and go to the Red Desert, not for punishment, but to see where fate leads her. Because she also, like, she's very, I don't want to say flip it, but Irene is the one who is like, I think the gods are involved. I think fate's involved. But Selena feels that too.
I feel like Selena, because there's a lot she's pushing down and has been for a while, she tries not to take too much too seriously, to think too deeply along some of these lines,
Mhm.
and so, and Irene is standing here like, I'm not afraid to think of these things. I'm not afraid to consider this. But also, Selena was daydreaming of like, what can I do for myself? I'm bored. What makes me
Yes.
happy?
I want to
And
get in a fight.
yeah, but so like, even just helping Irene here, she's doing something real
Mhm.
and something lasting. Like, this is going to mean a lot to Irene's future.
Yes.
And I think she has a moment of like, okay, I need
I
like,
can still make a
yeah,
difference.
it's kind of like a moment of, I don't know if it's maturity, clarity, growth, but she's like, I need to see where this is. I need to see what more I can do.
Right.
But, now it's time for the on site job training as 5 men, led by the asshole escaped earlier, converge on them.
Selena sends Irene inside while she draws her sword. So you're like, oh, she's going to take care of it. Nope.
Well, Irene is inside watching, not aware of her surroundings. A hand closes over her mouth and a dagger is pressed against her throat.
We need to be very aware of our surroundings, ladies. Be aware, be alert, pay
All the time.
attention. He leads her into the alley and he tells Selena to drop her weapon, but she doesn't. And Irene's like, She sees the challenge in Selena's eyes. Selena wants Irene to fight back, to fight for her shitty life. And she's literally like, fight for your shitty life.
Irene is not ready to die, especially not like this.
Not in Detroit.
So she uses everything Selena taught her, plus the feminine rage that's been building for 8 years, to get away and run.
Run right into Selena, who Irene realizes could have taken all these guys on her own. Definitely could have killed the guy that was holding the knife to her throat.
But Selena's like, you're welcome for this interactive self-defense class.
She advises Irene to wash the blood out of her clothes and don't tell anyone what happened because those men might have had more friends. She then picks up the men's coin pouches, like they have little coin purses, because she's going to stage it as a robbery so no one comes looking for the murderers, and she just vanishes.
When Irene returns to her room, she sees the leather pouch full of gold coins and the brooch on the bed, along with a note. For wherever you need to go and then some. The world needs more healers.
It's unsigned, of course. And I think that's important, like big picture wise, to remember that at no point does Irene know Selena's name, like any of her names.
Irene wonders if it had been some god who visited her tonight, or had it been the god's whispers that drove the stranger to walk down that alley.
She assumes that she'll never know, but whoever the stranger was, Irene's world, her life is now wide open. So she walks out of the White Pig and she never looks back.
That's awesome. Jess is going to be so mad when she has to actually roll the silverware.
That is the worst part of working in a restaurant, is rolling the fucking silverware.
Selena boards the ship an hour before dawn, ready to journey across the Gulf of Oro to the deserted land, where she'll land in Yurpa. Then I don't know why it's so funny. Then trek across.
Like you're just saying all these made up words.
But it just Yurpa. It sounds goofy coming out of my mouth.
Land in Yurpa.
Yurpa. Then she's going to trek across the sands to the Mute Master and his fortress of silent. Honestly, it sounds like an elf where he's like reading his book. He's like, then I traveled across the land of ooey gooey gumdrops. Yeah. Sorry, that took a turn.
Okay, Grandpa.
But she's going to work with the silent assassins.
Yeah, and she is going to also have to be a lot more careful with money after that little college fund that she set up for Irene. But she doesn't regret it, because she kind of sees they're opposite sides of the coin, healer and assassin, but they're also two people who lost everything to Otterland. They grew up into being assassins and barmaids, and they're all across the continent, all across this world, and they don't have a real place to call their home.
And Selena, or like a real future anymore. And Selena did feel a tug deep in her gut. She thought, like Irene, that fate had brought them together, that it was maybe even the gods at work.
God's plan, like Drake said. And we'll see just how right she is about fate in a later book, how important it is, like we said, that Irene went to Annika and studied and met the cats.
The cats!
The cats!
She also gave Irene Arabin's ruby brooch, hoping that an assassin's jewel would pay for a healer's education.
Well, the fact that Arabin even gave her a brooch in Otterland colors, like it would be like me giving you a giant headband in Alabama colors.
Gross.
Why would I do that? It's
Don't
an
be rude
insult.
to me.
But also giving away one of Arabin's presents, especially when we know that Selena loves pretty things, and she's also desperate for her problematic daddy's approval. It's her only father figure, and I think that it kind of shows how disillusioned she's becoming with Arabin.
Yeah, I mean she's
starting
very
to see
angry
through
after
the
Skulls
cracks.
Bay.
Yeah.
It's in Irene's hands now, though. But Selena prays that years from now, the healer returns to this continent and maybe, just maybe, heals their shattered world a little bit.
This is the shortest story, and it has a lot less action. And it can feel a little like a detour if you're like waiting to get to all this other stuff you know is going to happen. And it's actually one of my favorite stories. Like, I love this one. It gives me chills thinking about these two characters meeting.
Well, and I mean, we're going to see Irene again, so it's important for her character development. But also, I think that Selena took a turn, and I think it
Mhm.
was important that we
I
read
do
that
too, I
and
think she
how
did too.
she came to that decision to move forward, to do more, to keep learning more.
That's why I want everyone to read Assassin's Blade because it gives so much more depth to Selena and you understand her a lot more and like her reactions and her actions in Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight and beyond. It's just you understand because you have to know someone's lived experiences to really know them to understand them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Assassin's Blade is like where all of this growth is happening.
I mean, and where Crown of Midnight begins, it's not that it didn't make sense before, but the depth of some of it
Mhm.
makes more sense after also seeing the details of these
I
stories.
love seeing it through your eyes.
Do you?
A first-time reader
I'll have so many
of
more
Assassin's
opinions
Blade.
of
We've
yeah.
established that you read
I read
Throne
all
of
the others
Glass
a
as it was
million
coming
times.
out, but it's yeah, I think that it's I also love the placement that we did. I think 3rd is really
I
great.
think this is the right time for all of it because we've been introduced to a lot of the key characters from Selena's past, and now we're learning more about them and
Mhm.
where this is going to go with her future.
Well, and this is just another like you were saying, the domino pieces. One of the things that Sarah is best at is setting up the domino pieces. Not like she's great at hints and Easter eggs and connecting the worlds. But like I said, I get chills when I think about Selena being the reason that Irene is in Annika. Like it what the payoff in seeing where Irene's character goes and the impact she has on Selena and on the world, it's just it gives me chills.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's how one little thing can do so much. Like one little act that you have or
Yes.
one act you make, one thing you do can
One little
change
act you have.
one thing you do could really change somebody else's future. It's
Mhm.
exciting. Next week we'll finally meet the friend that Selena
The
references several
frenemy.
times. Yeah, in Crown of Midnight when she's talking about the witches and the assassin and the desert.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye guys.